to the end zone. It's Robinson for the touchdown.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in this morning to Out of Hibernation, USN's Chicago Bears pregame show. We are live with you each and every Sunday, breaking down what we believe the Bears need to do to win the game that's in front of us. So, as always, I've got my guy Ace with me to my left. One of these days, I'll get that right and be able to.
I got it right the first time today.
What's up, Ace? How are we doing this morning?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well, man. It's weird.
I like that you said that we were going to break down how the Bears could win this game. If I'm being honest, I don't know if that's possible today. I mean, anything's possible in the NFL, but I did a little bit of some digging into some stats that we'll go over a little bit later, but the matchups do not favor the Bears at all.
That they do not. And understandably, always going to be a little bit fan-sided and want to say that the Bears have a chance to win this game today. Realistically, I think that, as you said, Minnesota is definitely favored in the odds. If you want to bet, I would be betting on Minnesota, unfortunately, today. That's the reality of the situation that we're in with the Chicago Bears team. Yep. I think, obviously, we haven't seen solid offensive production throughout the entire season, right? I mean, Week 1, it was blamed on the rain, and then Week 2, you're playing a tough Packers team. The last 2 weeks, you're playing teams that you should be able to put significant points on the board against and move the ball downfield. Unfortunately, we just weren't able to see that. So, Thus far this season, definitely not what we – well, I don't want to say not what we expected, because we expected this team to be bad. Yes. Our guy Alan Bratcher in the chat saying, "What's up?" Morning, Alan. Hope everything's well. With that being said, it is what it is, right? We're here. We're at week 5. The Bears have a division rival game here against Minnesota. Should be an interesting game, to say the least. I think we're going to see what our secondary is made of for sure, with Justin Jefferson being out there on offense. What can the Bears do to slow him down? Or is he going to have a 170-yard game today like he has already this season?
Yep. I mean, let's why don't we bring Erik on, and then we can dive right into it, man. Get some opinions and see what you guys are thinking.
Absolutely. So before we bring Erik on, we have Erik Lambert of Sports Mockery joining us, friend of the show, great football mind, and as always, we love talking Bears with him. So let's go ahead and bring him in. What's up, Erik? Good morning. How are you doing?
Gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for joining us.
So we were talking, Tarbill and I, last week about how Justin Fields needed to kind of step up a little bit more than he has shown. Do you think that he had a better game last week than he had against the Texans?
Yes. Processing-wise, accuracy-wise, for the most part, yes, he suffered from a couple of drops from his receivers, which was really unfortunate. He missed a couple of guys that were open. It's a low bar at this point with him. You're just praying that he can show even modest improvement, but he's still tucking and running too often when he still has a pocket there that he could step up into. That's been a problem of his since his rookie season, stepping up into the pocket, trusting his protection. Now, listen, his protection hasn't been great, especially up the middle. It's been a nightmare with Sam Mustipher. And when that happens, a quarterback starts to lose the trust that the pocket's going to be there when he does step up. So it's kind of a conflagration of all sorts of things that are happening right now. The receivers aren't running the right route sometimes. Cole Kmet still can't get open consistently. The running game works fine, but he still doesn't trust the pocket. The receivers aren't where he usually expects them to be. So it's all sorts of things that are going into this whole problem that they're suffering, but he does need to play better. We all know that. We can all see that he's struggling, and, the running's been great. He's been, getting out of trouble a lot himself, but he's suffering a lot of hits, and that's going to take a toll on his body over the course of this season. And you just know if this keeps up, I mean, they're on course to allow 68 sacks. And a quarterback usually doesn't survive that long in a season to suffer 68 sacks. So you're just he learns to process quicker and get the ball out faster so he can protect himself. And that's sort of where things are right now with them. You're seeing progress, but it needs to be faster now, because if it goes at this rate, he's not going to survive the season.
No, very good point you allude to there, Eric. I look at Trey Lance, obviously, with the 49ers going down in week 2, on a very similar run to one that we've seen Justin Fields take this season. So obviously, detrimental injury for him there. He's going to be out for the season, they're projecting at this point. We don't want to see that happen to our quarterback in Chicago. Ultimately, he has to be better with getting rid of the ball. But I do want to ask you this, Eric, with the addition of Velus Jones, do you think we see him more incorporated in the offense this week? And do you think that helps Justin Fields have a guy that can be a reliable target? Because Darnell Mooney hasn't been getting the separation he needs. And Cole Kmet's obviously been stuck at the line of scrimmage a lot, helping with blocking, because this offensive line has not been good through the first 4 weeks. So do you think we see Velus in an expanded role today?
I do, because Dante Pettis really screwed himself last week with that nasty drop late in the game when he could have had a big first down. And I think that probably annoyed the Bears coaching staff considerably. Velus has had a chance to practice consistently for 2 weeks in a row now, so he should be more up to speed this time around than he was last week. And he sounds confident he's going to get involved in the offensive game plan, and he should, because Velus is probably one of their best, at least in terms of ability, yards after the catch guys. And they need somebody who can take some of those short passes and turn them into longer gains. That's been a problem of theirs for the past few years in the receiving corps. So I do think he's going to get more involved. I don't know how much, maybe 4 or 5 targets if they can manage it. And, if they can get that and he can pop off a couple of those short yardage catches into longer gains, I think that'll really help the offense sort of find more of a flow. It'll help the running game and maybe pop open some of those long balls that, Justin loves to throw.
Yeah, and ultimately, I was hoping we would get to see N'Keal Harry play this week. Obviously, he's going to be inactive, but I think he's a guy for me that, you get a big-bodied receiver out there that can go up and catch a 50-50 ball for Justin. Ultimately, I think when N'Keal Harry does make his debut, that helps build some confidence, because he has a guy that he can kind of throw that 50-50 ball to, similar to, I'm going to get crucified for saying this, but similar to Allen Robinson when he was in Chicago, right? That big-bodied guy that you trust to take a 50-50 target. Right now, we really don't have that on this Bears offense, unfortunately.
Very true. I mean, Equanimeous St. Brown is 6'5", but he's really thin for a 6'5" guy, whereas N'Keal Harry's much more built, much more, sturdy, that sort of thing. And he showed in college that he's excellent with the 50-50 balls, and I think that would really help them in the red zone, especially somebody who can win those tight matchups. But I think he'd also be a huge benefit to their running game. He's one of the best run blocking wide receivers in the NFL, at least he was last year. So that's another benefit to a running game that's been working pretty well for them. So he would definitely be somebody who can help them out in a variety of ways. I don't know if he's going to, suddenly emerge as, one of the primary targets that Justin looks to, but in certain situations, third down, red zone, I think he can actually be very beneficial to Justin.
And I think that's the big thing you highlighted there, is the red zone targets. Right now, who do you go to in the red zone? I mean, obviously for a bigger bodied guy, you've got Cole Kmet, but a lot of times, as I previously said, they're pulling him back to the line to help block, because this offensive line has been subpar in the pass protection thus far this season. And to me, as a fan, that's the thing that's been most frustrating, is all offseason we heard the improvements that they were making to the offensive line would translate to the field, and we're going to have better protection for Justin. And thus far, it just hasn't happened. I'm hoping once Sam Mustipher's out of that center position and Lucas Patrick's there full time, maybe We see some more cohesion with the offensive line. Obviously, Cody Whitehair getting hurt last week didn't help either. But it seems like it's one one thing or another for this offensive line, and they've struggled so far all season. And Sam Mustipher getting backed up so frequently right into Justin Fields, just you don't give a young quarterback time to process. Sure, I understand fundamentally he shouldn't be holding the ball as long as he is, and all of these things. He needs to learn how to step up in the pocket. I do agree there, but you're definitely not doing your young quarterback any favors by putting on the display that you have thus far as the offensive line.
So
Yeah,
I got a question about the offensive line real quick, Eric. I know Lucas Patrick was injured to start the season. They tried him out at guard. I think that's just to get him some reps. That's what I think, at least. Now, I heard that they were considering starting him today at center. Do you think that that's going to be more beneficial, or do you think there's going to be more struggles for this game if they started him over Mustipher?
I think having him at center would be more beneficial. He's got a good temperament. He's more athletic than Mustipher, which is a big thing with me. I don't know if he's stronger. I think he probably is, even though they're about the same size. And he showed in Green Bay that he's actually quite good at center, and he can help form that pocket. Now there will be some times where he matches up against these much bigger guys who might be able to roll him back a bit, like Dexter Lawrence did last week. I mean, when you're facing 340 pounds, it's really hard to face up against a bull rush against guys like that. So, I don't hold that against him too much, but he does need to, sort of shore that up a little bit. But I do think he would be an improvement at center. And then, you just got to find somebody at least modestly capable to play left guard. In my case, I think it would probably be Michael Schofield, the veteran. He started over 100 games, and you want somebody with experience next to Braxton Jones, who's, going through his rookie learning experience. So that would be the formation I would go for. And then maybe if you find somebody on the open market who might be healthy now and might be available, you can look into that maybe. I don't know, but that's the configuration I would go with. I don't know if the Bears are, because they seem, to trust Mustipher for whatever reason. Maybe they like his toughness, his intelligence, his leadership, all that sort of stuff. But, at some point, talent becomes an issue, in the middle like that. And he just doesn't seem to quite have the level of talent they need to keep Justin's pocket formulated the way they need it to be. So, I do think Mustipher is going to get benched eventually, if not this week. He should be benched this week. I think the original plan was to go with Patrick at center once his hand was healthy. It appears to be healthy now. They should go with it and just find somebody to fill in for Whitehair at left guard.
I couldn't agree more with that. Going back to Sam Mustipher, it's just, yes, I understand he's a leader of men type guy, right? He is very intelligent, has a very good relationship with all the other guys on the team. They look at him as kind of a natural leader. But as you said, talent becomes the obvious question at some point. And, I don't care if you're the most stand-up guy in the world. I get along with you great outside of football. If you can't consistently perform on Sunday and struggle the way Sam Mustipher has, I think that it's just at some point you have to move on. And I would like to see this week be that transitional week to Lucas Patrick at center, because I do think that having him there in the middle will solidify that line. And ultimately, there's too many, I don't want to say rookie mistakes, because Sam Mustipher's not a rookie, but the inability to snap the ball consistently. We see it every week. Justin's going down and reaching for a ball that was snapped weird, or ball ends up on the ground. That shouldn't be happening when you've had, over a year with this quarterback to work on timing and fundamentals. Last year, I get it. It was Justin's rookie year. That's the first season that he's snapped the ball with Sam Mustipher. But at some point, those excuses go out the window, and I think that time is now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a concern. I mean, I think Clay Harbor, the former tight end, pointed it out perfectly. He has a problem picking up blitzes, especially up the middle. I mean, it was consistent against New York. They ran the same exact blitz at him a few times, and they beat him every single time. And when something like that happens, when something like that happens, it tells you that he just doesn't have the wherewithal or the athleticism to do what he needs to do in order to pick these guys up. And that was giving Justin all sorts of problems. And it's not that Justin was making bad protection calls. It's just they couldn't block it. So when that happens, you got to make a change, because what's going on right now isn't working. And when it's not working, if you continue to do it, expecting something different, you're crazy.
Right. That's, as it's always been said, that's the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again.
I'm glad
and
you got the
expecting
analogy.
a different result.
So, do you think that the struggles for this team are more on Justin just not developing the way he should? Do you think it has something to do with, it's a new offense, so he's not as confident in it? Which do you think? Do you think it's more of a development for him in terms of how he sees the field, or the new offense?
I think it's talent. I mean, the supporting cast isn't good. It's just not. I mean, I pointed this out in a tweet recently. The NFL has sort of a measuring process for level of quality players. You got the blue chip, which are the superstars, the all pros. You got the red chips, who are solid starters. You got the green chips, who are like primary backups who can fill in as starters when necessary. And then you got the yellow chips, who are the emergency backups. And I asked everybody a very simple question. How many blue and red chip players do you see on this offense right now? I saw 0 blue chips, and I saw maybe 2 red chips, David Montgomery and Darnell Mooney. Those were my 2. You could probably squeeze in Cody Whitehair if you want. You can go either way. That's fine. But that just tells you how low the talent is right now on this offense. And it's been accumulating like that for years. So this isn't something that just popped up overnight. Ryan Pace did an absolutely atrocious job building this offense in terms of talent. Missed on Cole Kmet, missed on the other tight end he drafted in 2010, Shaheen. You missed on Shaheen. You missed on Kevin White. I mean, you miss so many times. You're going to see something like this eventually where you're the worst offense in the NFL. So I do think Justin suffers from his own problems. He still holds the ball too long. He's still slow with his processor. That's all true. But it's all exacerbated by the talent around him not being good enough to help. So until they fix that, it's going to be hard to evaluate Justin just because you see other guys not doing their jobs as well. So I'm really in a difficult spot because if he continues to look like this, like so inept against these defenses that he's facing, you at least expect a guy to be able to put up about 200 yards a game passing. And he has yet to reach that milestone, and it's week 5. And it starts to make you wonder, even though, yes, the situation around him is poor, if he can't even put up that, is he really cut out to be an NFL starting quarterback? And you have to start thinking, even though you don't want to, do we need to think about a change? So I'm really hoping he at least improves somewhat over the course of the season, because that'll tell you that he's starting to get the system. He's starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Then that'll tell the Bears, okay, he's improving. We just got to get him more help in 2023. Because if they can get him to there, I'll feel a bit more comfortable about where they are. But right now, my biggest concern is the offensive line's not good enough. The wide receivers aren't good enough. The tight ends aren't good enough.
Absolutely agree. I do want to highlight one thing that you said there. You said that Cole Kmet is a miss. I'm kind of the opinion that it's too early to say that still, but I'm quickly losing that stance each week. So
listen, I understand. I mean, it usually takes tight ends about 3 years to sort of get themselves going, and you're well within your right to think that. It's just, I always feel at some point you should be able to see at least flashes of him becoming a legitimate target. And he's had maybe 1 or 2 games over the course of his career where he's had a productive day, but I've never felt like the flashes have been there enough to show me. I think he's a good blocker, especially in the run game. He's a very good blocker in the run game, and that's fine. But when you draft a guy in a tight end in the 2nd round, you expect him to be more than a blocker. So that's where I'm at right now in terms of the expectations versus where he's at.
Well, and ultimately, when Cole Kmet came into the league, there were such high expectations because there were comparisons to, the 2 best tight ends in the league at the time in George Kittle and Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he has nowhere near performed the way that they did in their first couple of years in the league by any means. And it's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
We got a comment here in the chat. Kmet is a good tight end 2, will never be a tight end 1.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. I think that's where I'm leading to with Cole Kmet right now as well. We got a comment from our guy Alan here in the chat saying, go look at the comparison between Justin and Josh Allen through as many games. It's very close to identical.
This is true, but you have to remember Josh Allen started playing better right about now in the season in his 3rd, I think it was his 2nd season. The 5th game is when he really started to show that he was making progress. So that we should start seeing something from Justin around this time. And if we don't, then we're going to start to see that the lines between those 2 start to skew a little bit. So, I'm being patient. I've been telling people consistently, wait until after Halloween. until after Halloween. If he's still looking like this until after Halloween, then we can start having that conversation about there might be a problem at quarterback.
Yeah, and ultimately, we all want Justin Fields to succeed.
Of course. I'd love nothing better than for him to be a success. It's just, you only have so much patience. So, especially as Bears fans, considering how long we've had to endure this quarterback issue for so many years.
Right. And I think at this point, it's just more about consistency, stringing together a few of those good plays that he has. I mean, last week we saw a 55-yard pass to Darnell Mooney, beautifully thrown ball, excellently executed. And then we saw nothing for the rest of the game until that pass to Pettis that he dropped. So, obviously consistency is huge. I always go back to the Bears game against the Steelers last year. And I think for me, that's one of Justin Fields' best games of his career thus far, even though it was a loss. He showed in the fourth quarter that he could go out, execute situationally, run the 2-minute drill, drive the ball down the field, and then the defense ultimately gave it up for him. But at the end of the day, that was his most complete body of work, I would say, as far as quarterback play, consistency in 4 quarters of football. And that's only one game. I mean, I can't think of another game off the top of my head where I go, okay, he played 4 consistent quarters of football. And that's the biggest issue, is the consistency.
I think the Vikings game he played a little bit later in the season, he played well. He threw the ball well and he looked good. They just didn't score a lot of points. They only scored 9 points. They were in the red zone a lot, but they had to settle for field goals. I think he played well in that game. It's just the offense in general didn't execute enough to win it. So I would circle that one as well as one of his better games. But
okay,
you need to see more, obviously. And we just haven't seen a game like that this year at all. So until we start seeing something similar to that, it's really hard to trust that he's going in the right direction.
Another comment back to Justin Fields with our guy Allen here. This technically isn't Justin's second season. He hasn't played a full season yet. It's his first year in a new system. We need to get some guys around him and then judge him.
That's fair. Listen, I'm not begrudging that argument at all. It's a very valid argument because the Bears, you always want. Jay Cutler was derided for saying it constantly. He said, you need 3 years in an offensive system before you truly master it. And time has proven him correct. Josh Allen didn't become a superstar until his 3rd year in the offensive system in Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes is an anomaly because he was in his 2nd year and he threw 50 touchdowns in that system. But
right,
I sort of don't hold that against him because he had Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's a friggin' magician. So he tends to do that with quarterbacks. But by and large, it's true. Usually around the 3rd season is when you see a quarterback really start to, mesh with the offense. The talent around him is sort of put in place. And this is true with Justin. And then, I look at it like this. If the Bears drafted a quarterback next year high in the 1st round, they would just be stepping into the same situation he's in now. So would that really improve things, bringing in a rookie quarterback to try and fix a situation that's still broken? Whereas if they sort of hang on to Justin for another year, yeah, you risk him still struggling and you're going to have to come back to the quarterback question in 2024. But at the same time, you can use your resources, which are considerable next year, to improve the offense around him. If he improves, great. If not, all of a sudden you have a good foundation in place for the next quarterback. So in that context, yes, I agree that you could probably go that route.
So before we let you go, Eric, I got one more question about Justin and how you said Cutler said usually takes about 3 years to get an offense mastered. I mean, it's only about a year of him playing quarterback right now, and people are already ready to run him out of town. Do you think he has the time, or they're going to give him the time to figure this offense out?
I do think the coaching staff are committed to him 100%. I don't think they're entertaining the idea of going to Simeon at all, regardless of what happens. The great thing about Poles and Eberflus is they've had their eyes on the long term from the start, and they've said that multiple times. So they're committed to working this through with Justin to see what they have. And they're going to make their evaluations at the end of the year. If they feel that he's sort of trending in the right direction, I expect they'll keep him next year, build the offense around him, and then go at it again. But if he sort of stays level the way he is now, really struggling, really not figuring things out the way he should, they're probably going to entertain the idea of either drafting a quarterback or maybe signing a veteran in free agency. There will be, some decent options available depending on what happens with extensions and whatnot. So, everything's on the table for them right now. I do think they're committed to giving Justin the rest of the year, regardless of what happens, because they need to see what they have. They like the talent, they like the personality, they like the work ethic, they like all of that. They just need to see it on the field. And until that happens, they're probably just going to keep their options open. But I don't expect a change of any kind during the season unless Justin gets hurt.
So, alluding to that, you don't see a scenario where Justin goes out and throws 3 picks in a game, let's say, and the coaching staff's frustrated and they just sit him down and say, you're done for the rest of the game. We're throwing Trevor out there. Because I was at that point myself when he threw the 2 interceptions in week 3 that were just atrocious. You throw it into triple coverage. I was literally yelling at the TV, like, sit him down, put him on the bench, give him some time to cool down, to think and process, even if it's only a series or 2, just to regain his composure and watch the tape. I guess I was frustrated in that game, and I could see a scenario where he goes out, has a really bad game, and they put him on the bench, even if it's for the last quarter of the game, just to see what Trevor could do with the offense. Unfortunately, I'm almost at the point where I think that Simeon might be able to drive the ball down the field as good or better than Justin at this point with the struggles that he's had.
I understand that. He's more experienced. He knows the system well. You can absolutely envision it. He was playing well in New Orleans, but, obviously they had a way better supporting cast than the Bears do. But,
right,
his first year starting in Denver in this very similar offense, he actually played halfway decent for, it being his first year as a starter. So it gives you an idea that he might be able to play well. But, people use the Josh Allen argument. He had some brutal games in that second year where he threw 3 or 4 picks. I don't remember which it was, but they stuck with him. They kept him in the game. They let him continue to learn, and it ended up working out. He worked through his struggles. He started to, find his confidence, and, it ended up working out. And I think the Bears know they probably need to do the same thing. They can't be knee jerk in something like this with a development of a young quarterback. Benching him is probably going to do more harm than good. For somebody like Justin, he's very self-confident. He believes in his ability, and he believes he can work through his mistakes, and he's proven he can. His game against Houston was brutal, but he played much better against New York, even though the numbers don't really reflect that. So he's the kind of guy that is able to learn from his mistakes, but the Bears have to let him do that. And benching him, if he has a rough game where he throws 2 or 3 picks, probably isn't going to give them the end result that they're looking for.
Fair enough. No, that was more of a fan perspective than an analyst, for sure. It's just frustrating when you see these struggles and the inconsistencies. We want it all to gel together at the end of the day, and unfortunately, it hasn't thus far. Before we let you go, Erik, I do want to say, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, where they can follow you?
You can follow me at Erik Lambert 1 on Twitter. I'm on there all the time. And you can also find my work at sportsmockery.com.
Absolutely. Great work being put out over there at Sports Mockery. As always, Erik, we appreciate it. Thanks for giving us your time this morning. We're going to let you get out of here so you can get prepared for the game. And all I can say is go Bears. Hopefully somehow they pull it out this afternoon. Thanks
go
again,
Bears.
Erik.
I think it'll be closer than we think.
Thanks, Erik.
All right. Thanks,
boys.
Erik Lambert from Sports Mockery. Always a fantastic interview to have here on the network. Always some good football conversation with him. So, man, Ace, we're already at the halfway point of the show here.
So real quick, I wanted. Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Unfortunately, I did not get to break this out while Erik was on with us.
Are you trying to mock me? I kind of understand.
Damn, my Jay Cutler drop. That's my favorite drop we
Sports
have.
Mockery, mock me. Figured it would have been good, but we're at about the halfway point of the show here, so I think we need to get into our weekly segment. You agree?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So each and every week here on USN's pregame show out of Hibernation, we give you our bare bones, the keys to victory for the Chicago Bears on Sunday, and we are going to get into that right now. And as always, each and every week, this is the Bare Bones segment, our keys to victory. Here, each and every week, we give you 3 keys to victory that we think are instrumental to the Bears having a good game. Before we get into that, we do have a quick comment from Anthony in the chat here I want to address. It says, Monty is back. Will he be a factor? I think David Montgomery, absolutely, anytime he's on the field is a factor, right? I mean, he's arguably the best weapon on this offense at this point in time. I don't think anyone can argue against that with the lack of production out of the wide receivers. David Montgomery is a guy, and shout out to Alan Bratcher and the entire team over at the Tape Never Lies Network. I know Draft Dr. Phil is a big David Montgomery advocate, and he's said it best that David Montgomery is a guy that you let play until he tells you he is tired. You don't pull him out. You know, we saw week 2 against Green Bay, the run game was working, and then all of a sudden, week 1 against San Francisco, the run game was working great with Montgomery, and then you go to Khalil Herbert and you don't see David Montgomery get the ball again until the second half. That type of mistake can't happen. Obviously, as Alan's alluding to here in the chat, it's going to be on a pitch count, right? He's not going
that's what I was just going to say.
See the same amount of action that he normally would as he's...
That injury was pretty gnarly when you watched it on the replay. I think obviously having Montgomery back there, even just as the threat, is good, but I do still think that Herbert will probably have a bigger game and a bigger role than Montgomery will this game. You know, I could be wrong. Montgomery could bust a 65-yard run, and then who knows. But I think,
and
like
even
Alan
on limited
said,
action, there's always a chance for a guy like Montgomery to have that 60 to 70 yard burst play. And if he gets out there in the open field and runs a touchdown in, by all means, I'm happy if he only sees 10 carries, 15 carries, probably around 10 carries is what we're going to see out of Monty today, realistically. But I mean, at the end of the day, if he has 10 carries and he goes out and has 70 yards in 10 carries and has a spectacular limited performance, I'm totally good with that. So yes, Monty is back. I think he will be a factor of some sort. I think even with limited production, we see 50 plus yards out of him easily. And I think it opens up the opportunity for Khalil Herbert. It's a very good 1-2 punch, right? Because Montgomery and Herbert are very different types of runners, but together they are, something similar to, I don't even want to say it, but you look at Dillon and Jones on the Packers, they're almost like that, just that dynamic duo that are able to feed off of one another's success. So
they both have different skill sets at the position, but they both are effective at the position. I get what you're saying.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, let's get into the Bare Bones segment, our keys to victory. Angelo, I'm going to let you take the lead on this. Obviously, we're going to go 3 things, and I'm going to let you go first. We'll bounce back and forth. We'll go 1-1.
Perfect. All right. So my first one is really 2. It's the cornerback position today. They're battling Justin Jefferson. Right now on the season, Justin Jefferson is sitting at 393 yards receiving. We've watched the Bears defense, get burned by the run, which is also going to be something they have to watch. But going against a guy like Justin Jefferson, you just have to kind of limit the damage that he's going to be able to do to you. If they can hold him under 80, 90 yards, I would say that that's a success for this game.
Yeah, if you hold Justin Jefferson under 100 yards, I think that definitely is a success anytime that man's on the field. I mean, he's had games this season where he's scored over 150 yards twice and 2 touchdowns, which is great for fantasy football if you're a guy like me who took him in the first round. But ultimately, it's not going to be great for the Bears defense today. So I do understand your point there. For my number 1, though, ultimately, I'm going to go with a similar team approach and say that the wide receiver core as a whole has to be better today. I don't want to take the layup and say Justin Fields has to be better, but I think ultimately the wide receivers need to get that separation that they've been struggling to get all season. And I do believe the incorporation of Velus Jones in the offense helps that. I think that you see Velus go out there and the kid's just lightning fast, right? That was one thing. He's got really good legs, really quick, dynamic. Obviously, we saw the dropped punt. I don't want to go back to that. I think that was just rookie first game jitters. I think Velus will be better today, both in the return game, and I think we will see him incorporated in the offense. And I think ultimately that helps Justin Fields because he's a guy that you can go out there and target and trust, hopefully, to bring the ball in on, the slant route and those type of formations where he goes out, quick pass, quick catch, 12 yards, and then he turns it into a 20 yards after catch type reception. And all of a sudden that gives the offense a spark. And you've got someone else other than Darnell Mooney that you have to respect out there.
Right.
And all of a sudden Darnell might get open. Things might start formulating into more of a consistent rhythm. And then we might see the offense get a little bit of a spark in the passing game. I'm not going to say Justin Fields goes out here and throws for 300 yards. Until he shows me that he can do that, I'm never going to say that again because I've been burned the last 2 weeks in thinking that Justin Fields could go out and throw 300 yards against subpar defenses, and he just hasn't been able to do it, right? So
through 4 games, he's only sitting at 471 yards through 4 games. Like, that's awful.
And to go up and say to the media that the stat lines don't matter after those type of performances, I don't think he meant anything bad by it. But again, you shoot yourself in the foot when you talk to the media, kid. You gotta get a little bit more conscious of the things that you're saying and how the media is going to spin it for better or for worse.
Right.
But with that being said, my number one, Bears wide receiver core. Let's see Velus Jones be incorporated today. Let's see Darnell Mooney get some separation that he's been lacking thus far.
Yeah, I would like to see them use.
That's going to be my number one.
I'd like to see them use Velus Jones in okay, so you compared the running backs to the Packer running backs, but I'd like to see Velus be used kind of similar to how they do it with Tyreek Hill, Debo. Give him the ball in space, even if you have him in the back position a couple times. A pitch or something, let the guy utilize his speed on the offensive side of the ball. And, it can work magic for you.
Well, I think we at least need to see that not be a pitch, a wide receiver screen. So Justin Fields gets the yards. I'm kidding. All jokes aside, hopefully this offensive unit will look a little bit more gelled in together today with, obviously it sounds like Lucas Patrick's going to get more reps in the middle, and then Velus should be more well incorporated into the offense. Hopefully, we'll see what Luke Getsy decides to do.
I like this suggestion.
Maybe stop using Cole Kmet on screens and use Jones. Totally agree. Alan as well here in the chat saying I want some slant routes. That was what I was trying to allude to, my friend, is that we need to see the playmakers have the ability to get the ball in space and perform. And I think with Velus being healthy and having now his second week to practice with Justin, I think we see a lot of those. I don't want to say a lot, but I think if Velus sees 6 targets today, I think 4 of them are probably slant routes that obviously he breaks yards after catch of hopefully 10 or more. Would be
you see other teams utilize that, 3-yard slant, get the ball to the receiver, let him use his feet to get some yards. The Bears don't really seem to utilize that.
We don't do that over here in Chicago.
Nope. And I don't know if it has something to do with.
We run go routes with receivers that wouldn't even be 4th string options on some NFL squads.
And I wonder if it's because Fields doesn't get rid of the ball fast enough. If they're like, this just isn't going to develop, or it's going to develop too quickly for him to get the ball to the guy. If that's the case, I get it. Screenplays, though, run a couple play actions. I think that I like that suggestion of the wide receivers need to have a big game today.
So, alluding back to what Alan said with Cole Kmet, You remember last year, I know you do because I highlighted it several times in frustration. Matt Nagy always ran the tight end sweep in the end zone, and it never made any sense to me. And we're seeing similar utilization with Cole Kmet on screens. Stop trying to give the guy the ball on a screen pass. I don't understand. He's not Travis Kelce. He's not George Kittle. Those guys run receiver routes most of the time.
And if we're being honest, his hands are not that great.
No, and I get it. He's a check down, a fallback option because he's a big bodied guy. Get away from it. Do better, Chicago Bears. Do better, Luke Getsy. That's all I can say in that.
That's
regard.
what usually ends up killing most of these Bears drives, right? Is they try to do a slant or a screen, and it just gets blown up in the backfield, and you're losing 2 yards. And then the next thing you know, you're in 3rd and 14 because you can't get a simple screen route out to 2 or 3 yards. I would like to see them kind of move away from Kmet on the line, let him, try to use his body a little bit further down the field. I think Velus Jones, if he plays a significant amount on offense today, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a touchdown.
Fair enough. I like it. Since you started with our number ones, I'll go ahead and start with the second key to victory that I believe the Bears need today to be successful, and sticking with the offense, but taking a different approach. I'm going to say the second key to the Bears' victory today is Luke Getsy running more bootlegs.
I like it.
Now, that's as general as that sounds. I think time and time again, we've talked about Justin Fields just needing to go out there and play football, get in a rhythm, not have to think so much, right? Cut the field in half for your young quarterback. Let him roll out, whether it's to the left or to the right. Stack those receivers on that side of the field and just let him go out there and make a play. If it's not there, he tucks the ball and runs, gets a first down. I think the bootleg, with the atrocious offensive line play that we've seen thus far this season, I think the bootleg has to be your go-to. And I think I would like to see at least 7 bootleg plays today out of the passing game.
I'd like that. I think you watch the Giants do it, and they had so much success against you.
They made Daniel Jones look like Lamar Jackson out there for a little bit,
they
right?
Really
Obviously
did.
Not as fast, and a part of that is our defense. And our guy Allen here in the chat saying my key is to not play shotgun on 3rd and 1. Utilize your fullback and keep that offense.
And he's right. Like, why have a fullback on the team if you're not going to utilize him for what that position was mostly known for, right?
Can you enunciate our fullback's last name for the audience here?
I cannot.
I cannot either, and I'm not going to attempt it.
I'll embarrass myself.
But yes, I agree 100%. You have a fullback to put on the field. If you're going to roster a guy like that, use him, utilize him in those situations that you need to. There's no reason that you can't get a yard on 3rd and 1. I mean, other than this offense has just made the wrong calls consistently, and shotgun on 3rd and 1's the wrong call. I don't care who you are. Maybe unless you're Tom Brady or, a guy like that, upper echelon quarterback. At this point, the Bears don't have that. So totally agree with that comment. But again, for me, number 2, run the bootleg, simplify it for Justin, cut the field in half. Let him just go out there and play football, not have to think. What do you got for your number 2 key to victory?
So number 2, we kind of touched on it with the wide receivers. I had Darnell Mooney. I think that every time he gets an opportunity, he has to make the most out of it. Obviously, we want him to catch every single pass that's thrown to him. But to give Fields that confidence, I think he needs to be more active, more... If he sees the play breakdown, he needs to do what he can to try to get himself open so that he can allow, Fields to have an easy read, or at least the potential for, if he takes off and runs, you can be a blocker. But I think Fields struggles a lot with his confidence. At least to me, it seems that way. Whenever something doesn't go right, he seems to kind of just like get into this shell. I noticed it in the Texans game when the ball was fumbled on the first snap. It just looked off and awful the rest of the game. I think Mooney's going to be a real big big key just to help boost Justin's confidence.
As he should be, right? All we heard all offseason was about the fantastic connection and chemistry these guys have. Darnell bought a jugs machine and put it in his house. Him and Justin are staying late together after practice to get extra reps in.
Right.
Where has it translated? It hasn't. I mean, Darnell Mooney had his biggest game of the season last week with 94 yards and no touchdown, and it's not enough. When you're the number one, even though I don't think you're a number one receiver, when you're the number one option on this team, be that as it may, for lack of a true fundamental number one on this team, you need to go out there and perform and make spectacular things happen for your quarterback to an extent. It's not all on Darnell Mooney, but he needs to figure out how to break coverage more consistently, how to turn things, how to make something out of nothing, ultimately, is what I'm saying. So,
right. I mean, think
what
about it. You
allude
said he
to
had
there.
how many yards last week? 93?
94 yards.
94. He has 121 total this season. So 94 of the, so 27 yards in 3 games before last week. Like,
Right.
to give your, that's not, how's that going to boost the confidence in your quarterback? How's it going to boost your
It's not.
offense? Right.
There's zero confidence in your
Right.
quarterback
And
at this
if
point,
you
and it
want to prove,
translates.
right, if you want to prove that, you know, you're a wide receiver 1, hell, even a wide receiver 2 at this point, because if you look through the NFL, you just go team for team. Their wide receiver duos are, he would be probably 3rd or 4th option on most teams at this point. Obviously, he's one on ours because he's the best one we got, but
he's the best of a bad situation.
Right. You need to be better and get yourself open.
Exactly. And since I went second, let's go right back to you with your 3rd and final key to the Bears' victory today.
All right. So I have, it's kind of like my first one. It's a 2. I have the safety play today is going to be majorly important. I think they have to be opportunistic. They have to look for opportunities to
Are you
take
like trying
them.
to mock me? I kind of understand.
I love it. You know, they got to go for interceptions. I would say, especially because the run defense has been awful, they need to be able to, when the Delvin Cook or I forget the other guy's name, when they get through the first line, they need to be able to bring them down. Otherwise, it's going to be one hell of a long day.
So I have a problem with you saying the safeties, just because Eddie Jackson has been tremendously productive thus far over the course of this season, obviously with interceptions and even with tackles the last couple weeks. I guess I understand fundamentally what you're saying, but I think at this point, in my personal opinion, there are, I would say, bigger fish to fry than the safeties. I think Eddie's stepping back into true elite Eddie Jackson from his Alabama days. Roll Tide. And I don't know. I think
so it wasn't issues, like,
but I understand.
I wasn't using it as they need to step up because they haven't played well. I just think that they're going to be big time in terms of run defense, especially. I think they have to be able to, when Minnesota is able to get into the second level, they have to be able to bring these guys down. Otherwise, Eddie Jackson, I know he does that little shoulder bump tackle thing, and it frustrates me all the time. That's not going to work
today. I get what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
I think they need to wrap up, take them down, and just continue to be opportunistic. Give your offense the ball in better field position.
Understood. And that makes a lot more sense. So I do understand your perspective there. It makes sense. It's just for me, I got to go back to the offense for my 3rd take. But before I do that, we got a comment from Anthony here in the chat. If Kmet puts up another goose egg, I would cut him. We need a reliable tight end. Anthony, the only issue with that is we're not going to be able to go out and get a true tight end 1 from any other team really right now, unfortunately. And
honestly,
there's not a tight end that's unsigned that is better suited for the Bears offense right now. I don't think. I think once I think next season, or in the off season, I'm sorry, there may be options to look at tight end if Cole doesn't produce throughout the rest of the season. But right now, unfortunately, I just don't think there's another guy that you could go out and autofill into this offense and make the Bears instantly any better. My third key to victory here, Angelo, as much as I hate to do it, I got to take the layup, and I got to go back to Justin Fields. Justin Fields has to have 200 plus yards on offense today. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's it. That's all I have to say. He has to have 200 plus yards, whether 50 of those come with his legs and 150 are through the air. I don't care what the breakdown is. 250 plus yards for Justin Fields today for this Bears offense to have a chance.
There's one statistical part right now that the Bears are leading in terms of leaders of their team. Dalvin Cook only has 279 yards for the Vikings, and Herbert, surprisingly, is the lead for the Bears with over 300. I think they need to utilize that part of their offense also. Like you said, Fields, I think Fields has to be an extension of the run. I think he needs to make the better decisions on, okay, I'm going to throw or I'm going to run. He can't do this whole, I'm going to stay back here, dance around, not sure what I'm going to do, and then go to take off and just have
Better
awkward
decision
falls.
making, yeah.
Right. I think obviously Fields is going to be the number one guy probably the rest of the season. But I do like that you put him up there.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to do it because it's almost the layup at this point, but realistically it needs to be talked about each and every week because the performance has just not been there so far this season. We need more out of Justin. We as Bears fans and even the coaching staff, I would think, expect more out of him as far as passing yards than he's been able to put up so far this season. And it comes down to you go out and you make nasty comments to the media about, I don't want to say nasty, it wasn't mean or malicious or anything, but you go out and say that the yards don't matter and as long as we're winning games, but you're not. The problem is last week you throw for what, 130 yards or so.
Right.
I don't know the exact stat line, and you don't execute in the red zone, you don't score any touchdowns, you lose the game. You cannot win a football game by kicking only field goals in the NFL. And
nope. Yurko talks about it all the time. 3s and 6s. You get down to the red zone 4 times and you got to kick field goals. I told you that was going to happen, right? I didn't predict that I thought the Bears would be able to pull it out with 4 field goals, but they didn't. But they struggle, and I'm not fucking breaking any news here. They struggle hard in the passing game, man. And it's kind of embarrassing sometimes to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you're sitting there and we watch other teams with, Geno Smith lighting up the scoreboard and you got a third.
Get out of here. Who would have predicted that? I just have to stop you right there. Geno Smith
then you have the backup for New England, right? The third string guy comes in and I'm not saying he was great, but he seems to have a better understanding of, just how in decision making and pocket presence. Right. I think, it just frustrates me when they get down there and, your keys were great. Luke Getsy, I think, is also to blame for a lot of these red zone trips. The play calling is kind of suspect at times down there.
It's very Matt Nagy-esque, dare I say.
Yeah, like they try to be too cute, right? And it just doesn't seem to work ever.
Right. And that's the thing, alluding back to the play calling before we wrap up here, the biggest thing that frustrates me with the play calling is you run an outside zone offense, and we've seen more inside zone at times than outside zone. I don't understand I get, you don't have the strongest offensive line, so some of the outside zone type plays, and even, going further outside and running a pitch or a toss may not necessarily be a good idea because the offensive line has to hold up longer. But when you see guys consistently getting stuffed up the middle for, a 1-yard gain or often a 1 to 2 yard loss, that begins to get a little frustrating and stale. So I think today we really need to see more of the outside run game out of Luke Getsy. And that all feeds into what I alluded to earlier, the play actions, the bootlegs, the things that Justin Fields can do well at this point is utilize his legs and I get it. You want him to be a quote unquote pocket passer some of the time, but Lamar Jackson runs all over the field and makes it work every Sunday. So I think ultimately they need, I've said it so many times over the years when we've been podcasting together, Ace, and I'll say it again, play to your quarterback's strengths. I said the same thing with Mitch before Justin was here.
Yep.
Like Matt Nagy was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And unfortunately, I'm starting to see a similar situation with Luke Getsy, where he's trying to fit, let's say, a square peg into a rectangle hole.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
rectangle, right.
It's not quite as bad,
Right.
but it's still not working to the level that we would like to see it work.
Right.
Look at you with your bougie ass coffee over there drinking Starbucks.
That's right.
That thing was probably $7. Is it pumpkin spice?
I think it was
the
$6.
audience, they want to know.
I know we're a Bears show and we're almost up against it, but I do want to make a acknowledgement of this, that the Giants pulled off the victory against the Green Bay Packers, because
That they did.
the Packers suck, right? And let me tell you, let's get into this for a few minutes, right? The Packers got taken to their limits by a third string quarterback against New England, right? They pulled out the victory, but it was not easy.
It was an ugly game, to say the least.
It was an ugly game. And this week they lost to the Giants. Like, the Giants are 4-1 right now, and everybody keeps saying they're not a good team. I think the Giants are the perfect example of what good coaching can do.
Yeah, and look who's the coach over there. The guy that I would have loved the Bears to have
me
head
too.
coach.
That
I'm
was the
not
guy I
giving up
wanted.
on Matt Eberflus by any means. It's way too early to even speculate a thought like that. I like what Eberflus is doing in a lot of ways, but man, Brian Dable, guys.
So today becomes an even bigger game for the Vikings, right? Because they beat the Packers. So now if they beat the Bears, they go up another game in the division and they get a little space from Green Bay. So this could end up being a rough game for the Chicago Bears.
That it could. We shall see, my friend. As always, I think that we want to be optimistic, but unfortunately, I think the Vikings, unless the Bears really step up, the Vikings are the clear-cut winners here this afternoon, unfortunately. Let us know what your projections are. Comment in the chat what you believe will be the score of the game today. Ace, what do you got? Final score. Give it to me.
All right, so I have a score that in my mind is the score that I think it's going to be, and in my heart, I have it a different way.
All right, give me your mind, because I don't care what your heart thinks.
I think the Bears lose
Better
this
put your
game.
heart on ice.
I think the Bears lose this game 34-17.
Oof.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't want you to put your heart on ice. Tell me what your heart feels.
My heart, my meathead heart over here says that the Bears can somehow pull this out like 27 or 23-17.
Okay.
But I don't know, man.
All right. Interesting. I'm going to give you one final score prediction. I'm not going to separate the two. I'm going to say that the Bears go out somehow. If Justin Fields has a good game, they go out and they win. I'm going to say 20-17. If Justin Fields goes out and doesn't look good and the offense is not hitting, the Bears go out and lose this game 28-10.
Yeah. We both know if the Bears don't show up, this is going to be an ugly game.
Yes, agreed. With that being said, guys, we are 26 minutes away from kickoff, so we are going to get out of here, let you guys finish getting your fantasy football lineup set up, get the TV tuned into the pregame, get the food going. I know I'm making ribs this afternoon, so I'm really excited about that. As always, man, it's Football Sunday, Ace. It's a great day. Highlight of the week, right? So, as always, we appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to go like, subscribe, and follow the Undefeated Sports Network on all platforms. We are on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. You can find us on all of those places. You can find us here each and every Sunday morning, giving you the best Bears pregame show around. We appreciate all of you for joining in. and we will see you again next week. Game day Sunday, go Bears. Have a good day, everybody.